I am good, Mr. Lance. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
February meeting of the Solid Waste Authority will now come to order. We'll have our invocation by Brother Long, our Pledge of Allegiance by Sister Creech.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing us here together tonight safely, and we just ask that you be over this meeting and look over us and make sure that the words out of our lips and the meditations of our minds are pleasing to you and in the best interest of the people of every county. We ask that you be in all those and be with those in harm's way and be with us as we go through our lives and do your will, not ours. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All public information gone out for the meeting. We've had no requests for public input at this time. Therefore, we'll have approval of agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second, that we accept the agenda for the meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes of the January 30th meeting, you should have had a copy of that and read. Are there any corrections? Motion for approval?
So moved.
Make a move.
Second. It's been properly moved in second that the minutes of our January 30th meeting be approved and accepted. It comes to a question, prepared to vote, say aye.
Aye.
Opposes? Ayes have it, no order. No public input. We'll begin with departmental reports and updates. Recycling and Corporate Affairs, Ms. Murphy.
Good evening.
Hello.
Evening.
My report begins on page 16. We're going to begin with the update on our winter ice storm cleanup. I'm going to focus on the recycling center side. In your board packet, I included some information and even more so some pictures of a few of the sites that were hardest hit as far as usage following the storm on February 12th. And those pictures are in your book or on your iPad as well as on the screen. Some of the heavier hit areas and most used recycling centers included Jackson Bluff, McDowell Shortcut, Socastee, Longs, Homewood, and also Scipio Lane. In your packet, I gave you a tonnage comparison for the first 5 days or so after the storm, but I wanted to go ahead and give you an update. It's been not quite 2 weeks since we began cleaning up. We began cleaning up and receiving material at the recycling centers on February 13th. Since that time, we've taken in, through the recycling centers, 1,575 tons of yard waste or storm debris. That's compared to 152 tons for the same time period last year. So that's 10 times more material flowing through the recycling centers. And that's only what's been brought here to the landfill. There's plenty more out there. It's an increase of more than 600 pulls as compared to last year. At some of the centers, there was a significant amount of material coming in, so much so that material had to be bought and put on the ground. By last Friday, we knew at certain centers we needed to have another mode of getting that material from the centers to the landfill, just because using roll-off trucks works well in regular times, but in times such as these, which are far from regular, we needed another mode of transportation. So we called a few local haulers and was able to utilize a walking floor trailer, actually two, from Easy Dump, along with a rubber tire loader, and many thanks to Mr. Hillen and the landfill staff who have accommodated us in actually operating the loader. And we've gone to 4 recycling centers since Friday. And the mode was to pick up the largest amount of material that was on the ground. So we started at Socastee. We spent virtually all day at Socastee on Friday. We went to Scipio Lane. Then we pulled 1 load out of there on Friday, 3 on Saturday. Yesterday, we moved to back. Let me give you a picture. We cleaned up Socastee on Friday afternoon. By Saturday, about 1 o'clock, there was material back on the ground. And this is, Socastee has yard waste compactors. But in addition to the compactors, we also located 8 open-top containers there. So that means we still, within less than 24 hours, had more material on the ground. That's just how fast it's coming in and the volume of it that's coming in. So we utilized this system. 1 walking floor trailer can haul approximately 10 tons of yard waste. Our yard waste operator, Sean Ard, excellent. I got to watch him in action on Friday, and he's doing a great job in taking care to load the trailer properly, but to ensure it's getting its capacity. 1 walking floor trailer can haul about 10 tons. That's as compared to a 1 walking floor trailer would equal 5 roll-off pulls. So since we've been utilizing this, we've, just through this system, just using the walking floor trailer, we've pulled almost 200 tons out of 4 recycling centers, and that's material that's on the ground. And we're going to the larger centers with the biggest amount of material. We still have material on the ground at 18 of the 24 centers. Some have a small amount, some a little bit larger, such as Loris. And our plan is to go to Loris tomorrow and possibly to go to Long's Recycling Center tomorrow. It's definitely a task that is daunting, just to ride around and see that there's a lot of stuff still out there that hasn't gone anywhere. But we believe we're up to the task. We're working closely with the county to ensure they're informed of all the actions that we're taking to still maintain some semblance of normalcy in the recycling centers. And Bill, when he comes up, he'll give you an update on actual overall tonnage that's coming through the landfill. The next update I want to give you is on the Grinding of the Greens program. Well, grinding greens, we really grinding greens now. But through that program, which is a partnership between Santee Cooper and the Solid Waste Authority, for this calendar year, or this program year, we recycled over 6,300 Christmas trees, which is up from last year. Last year we recycled about 5,500. So that's a program that continues to grow, and it's one that's been very productive. The last update I wanted to give you was just a reminder that all board members are required to complete a statement of economic interest every year with the South Carolina Ethics Commission. If you have not done so, please take this as a reminder that it has to be done by April 15th. They will fine you, so I've reminded you. If you need any help or assistance, please call me or Nanette, and we'll be more than happy to help. Any questions? Thank you.
Let me say this to the board, you can fool around with a lot of things out here, but this crowd here, don't fool around with them. 'Cause fine can be $100 this year, and a few years down the line, you'll owe them $10,000 or something. And that's happened to some of the county folks, so please, let us know if we can help.
Good afternoon.
Hello?
My report begins on page 36 of your iPad or your, I guess, your board packet there. definitely, grinding this, last couple weeks has been a huge thing around here. You saw all Esther's stuff right there, and, we've had our share too, but at the same time, we're still in the process of getting our grinding area relocated to the back. We're getting real close on that. If we get some weather cooperation, we think in the next 2 weeks, we're probably gonna have it just about done. The road's pretty well finished. We got a little more stone to do. There's a, picture in your, board book. You can see it right here also on the screen. The windrow pad. It's, pretty well finished now. It's about 90% complete. We still got to add some depth to the rock out there, and we'll have it. And then there's some dressing up to do. So we'll, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have that, and then we'll kind of make our plans. But as Esther said, we are being swamped with the yard waste and the storm debris coming in here. And with all the planning they did, we've had to do some planning here to get ready for the onslaught that we were going to get. So what we've done, we built a smaller pad out there. You can see just to handle the smaller vehicles coming in. We used our original one for the big roll-offs coming from Unlimited and the tractor trailers from Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach. But we built this one right here. Stays busy all day long, constantly vehicles coming in. But it gives the smaller vehicles plenty of room to offload, kind of like what we used to do with the containers at the Y, where we'd let the pickups go down there and offload, and they'd stay out of the way of the big haulers so they can get in and out. So that's kind of what we've done right there. I think we've done pretty well keeping them moving. We try to keep it ground up. Once it gets to a certain point, we'll get out there and try to do some grinding on there to keep it ready for the next day for the folks coming in. You can see when we finished up this day right here, we did it when we got ready to turn in our board report. We had it all ground. We should get we've got a pretty good sized pile out there. We're going to tack it tomorrow with our new grinder, so we should get it all ground up. Just to share some numbers with y'all that Esther said what was coming in from the centers, but what we've had here from February 13th, that was the Thursday before Valentine's Day through yesterday, we've had 2,268 loads come in. Now, a load could be a pickup, could have been some of the stuff, they were the tractor trailers that they were offloading right there. Tonnage-wise, we've had 4,420 tons. 4,420 tons of storm debris coming here. And I think staff, I got to commend them, the guys that are out there. We have had to work some Saturdays and Sundays. We've had the scale house open both those Sundays there to accommodate the folks out there bringing it in. And there's a couple days we've pushed 300 vehicles coming in just with storm debris. So it's been a busy time out there, but I think we've done well and held our own. Not really had anybody, complaining about I can't get in and out. So, but staff back there, guys I work with every day, just never cease to amaze me how well they get things done and keep things moving out there. So I appreciate what they've done each and every day they come to work. Our driver of the month is Marshall Patrick from Unlimited Sanitation. You can see he's a pretty proud guy right there. Great picture. Works well with the scale house and also the fellows operators out on the landfill. Does a nice job. So we were glad to nominate Marshall for this month's driver of the month out there. That was for January. Kind of moving on. I was asked at the last board meeting, or maybe it was at the committee meeting, I'm not sure. I think it was Ms. Creech asked if we had some method of the materials that we recycled at the processor, how many or what kind of space we were saving, what we were getting from each one. So when we started that program over there, put together a spreadsheet, which is pretty much, it's a big spreadsheet, but hopefully what I've put in your board packet and was kind of what you were asking for. You can see going through there, we started our programs in May of 2012 at the processor. And the materials we take in there, the wood, carpet, mattresses, cardboard, concrete, scrap metal, aluminum, plastic, peat plastic, and dirt. Some of those we didn't start with. But as we moved in and fine-tuned the program, that was stuff we could pull out of there, and it was saving valuable landfill airspace out there. So, when you look at it, if you look at it just a ton for ton method on that, on page, I'm not sure what it is, 46, I think, not quite lined up here. You can see ton for ton is like almost 42 days of airspace we've saved, but if you look at it based on the cubic yard, because a lot of your lighter materials, you can take those and you can crunch those up and put, you can make it smaller to put in a cubic yard, so you can keep putting more and more in there. So just on the processor alone, we saved what we estimate and put a lot of time into the internet. We've weighed things out here on the yard, approximately just using that 62 days of airspace out there. So that's, hopefully that kind of answers what you were looking for there. And we keep that going every month. It's updated, and we'll keep that program going. So 62 days just out of the processor in, what, a year and a half. That's pretty good. You want to take that a step further if you go to the next page, which is even more incredible. If you talk about the shingles, come in, and we get the revenue for them. We don't have any disposal. We work with ST Wooten. They go out, and it's recycled. It's used in their asphalt base out there. So if you add the shingles in there, and you can see the top of the chart, we did start that in September of 2011. Estimated we've saved 102 days of airspace on the C&D Hill out there. 102 days, and we average working a little over 25 days a month, 6 days a week. So that's close, that's 4 months between the shingles and the processor, 4 months of airspace we saved on C&D out there. So that's, we're proud of that. We were anxious to hit that triple digit, that 102. And we were proud to hit that number, and we'll keep, the next thing we want to hit, it's going to take a while, but we want to get that year on there. I think a year we work about 307 days or something like that in a year. So that's our next goal, to get that to 307. That'd be a nice number to share with y'all.
I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Is there an easy way, I don't mean but is there an easy way to show these savings in dollars? I mean, so many days, a day costs so much times so many dollars.
Yeah, roughly, I think we average somewhere, I think it's 7,600 maybe dollars a day in C&E. If I think about that right, I'd have to verify that number. I've got it on my program back there, but I think it's $7,500 or $7,600 a day revenue coming in. So if you just multiply that, you say 100 times 75, what is that, $75,000 maybe, or 750,000? I don't know. I don't have my calculator.
750,000.
Yeah. So that's,
Well, if you don't mind, the next time, just put a little sub-note and say, this is so many dollars, as
Okay.
well as days.
Next time we do the update, I'll be sure to put that on there.
Thank you.
Got that. So any other questions on that? Like I said, be glad to share that with anybody if you'd like to come out. Last thing I want to talk about, we just completed about 10 days ago a compaction study. We were asked in, I think it was October, by Caterpillar to do a compaction study comparing their compactor versus what we have out here, the Aljon unit. Again, that was October. So everything was locked in, and we did they got a new unit in here the 1st of February, and we did the study, I think it was February 11th through the 14th. They brought a brand new unit, never been really run anywhere. It had 8 hours on it, and put it up against the Aljon that we've had out here for 2 years. It has roughly 6,000 hours on it. Caterpillar brought 7 people in with them. And we invited Aljon. They came in, and they brought 3 folks in with them. Basically how it worked is we started at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the first truck that came in got a number 1 that went to solid waste, MSW hill. The second truck come in, got a 2. We had 2 hills out there. Caterpillar was 1, and Aljon was 2. And it rotated. Every other load came in and went to a certain hill. We had 2 working faces, and we really couldn't even see each other. And of course, everybody with Caterpillar had folks in the scale house, and they had folks out there also on the hill out there. Now, we couldn't have picked a worse week to do it. That was the week of the ice storm. But we still carried through with it. We contracted with Solon and Associates. They came out each day except Wednesday because it was just horrendous, the weather that Wednesday night. They didn't come then. So what we did, we got a compaction number for the the Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, we combined those two together because they came back out Thursday night, and then we did Friday. So we had 4 days of numbers, but we combined the Wednesday and the Thursday together. Just they couldn't get out here and do anything. The program was monitored good. Each day I had finance sent me a tonnage report with the ones and the twos. Each day when it was time in the morning and the evening, when it came time to fuel the trucks, both of them were pulled up on the hill at the same time. They were cut off at the same time. They were fueled that we had them on a level area so we could top them off. The the equipment hours were recorded. And so we have two things. We've got fuel per hour that was, consumed by each vehicle. And then we have a compaction. How many pounds per cubic yard were put out there in MSW in each one of these hills out there. So, again, Solon came out every night. When we did the fuel results, the Caterpillar burned 17.7 gallons per hour, and the Aljon burned 22.7 gallons per hour. So it was about 5 gallons difference per hour for the 4 days. One thing on that, we do know that the gentleman that headed up from Caterpillar, excuse me, he asked him to keep it at 1,800 RPM, where the Aljon was running at about 2,100. So that was a little bit more, but, it was Caterpillar's study. When we did the compaction numbers, and again, it was over 4 days. All the information came here. Caterpillar did 1,451 pounds cubic yard. The Aljon did 1,495 pounds per cubic yard. There was about a 44-pound difference there. So we got one that's saving money on the fuel, and the other is going to save on some airspace out there. So it's a matter of looking at it that way. We did a similar survey about in 2011, and there was about a 60-pound difference then. So anyway, I think it was a fair study. It was monitored by both companies. The tonnage came strictly from finance, things that went through the scale house. We had Solon and Associates come out and do the GPSing. So really, we didn't touch it. All the thing we've done is taken the numbers and crunched them and put them in some formulas, and that's what we got. So, any questions on that?
What, does it mean you need to buy one instead of the other?
Well, there's a lot of things you have to look at when we get ready to do it, when we bid it. First of all, we'll look at whatever bid price it is. Then we'll have to analyze the fuel savings versus maybe the airspace savings. The TM&R could come in, one could be higher than the other on that. There's a lot of things to look at, just before you purchase one.
Yes, sir.
With all other things kept equal, why were the RPMs allowed to be different?
They've got like a cruise control on the Caterpillar unit where there's not one on the Aljon unit. So they could set it at the 1,800 where the Aljon couldn't.
Well, if you were doing the same thing, real work, I know this was a lab study, which one would you buy?
I'll have to weigh all the numbers and crunch it, and I'll let you know then.
Are we in the market for one?
Next fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, we put it off, remember, because we had to get the grinder for this year. So,
You got one for the next 2 years, do you not?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So once we get bids, we put it all out, we'll put all that together, and we'll share that with you.
And were the results shared with both companies? They know?
Yes.
Okay.
I sent them out late this afternoon, just with everything we've had going on.
And what was really good about the study, we were able to keep this new machine and run it for what, 2 weeks, Bill?
We got to run it all last week, yeah, an extra week,
Yeah.
which was really good. They asked us, and we said, heck yeah, it saves on ours, so it's like somebody loaning you a car. I'll go ahead and run that and keep mine in the driveway.
Run it, yeah. And it was at no cost to the solid waste authority.
Didn't cost us anything, even though we contracted with Solon, Caterpillar was picking up the tab on that. And really, I mean, everything else, I mean, it went well, other than the weather just being, you know, kind of a pain it was, but it went well.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Elling.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello?
The financial reports begin on page 51. Want to start with kind of pointing out a few things on this. This is the summary page, and at the last board meeting, Mr. Gray had asked if I would kind of make a few changes to this report. And as you see, under the top, under the total designated and restricted assets, we've listed all the different designated accounts there for you. So it shows what makes up that 35 million for you there. So we've got that broken out for you. Normally, we just have the closure and post-closure amount on there, but now we've got all the other designated accounts for you to take a look at. And then we have also, like I said, like we always do, the liability account, which is just for closure and post-closure. As you can see under the tipping fees, another change that we had added there was the comparison, percentage comparison as compared to last year. As you see, we're at a 0.33% decrease over from last year. I think that was the only changes on the summary sheet.
On that, you're saying those line items there for restricted accounts add up to the 35 million?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, they do. If you look at page 53, that's the income statement. We're at 7 months of the year, and through 7 months, we should be at about 58%. As you see, our revenue is at 54%, and our expenses are at 51%. So we're still operating overall with our expenses under our revenue at about $650,000. As you see, for the month, we are at a deficit of $200,000. We did have 3 payrolls this month, and every time we run into that, we normally do run a lot of times into a deficit for the month. So that's normally what has happened here. We probably had also some additional expenses with some of these storms and things as well during the month. But like I said, they're maintaining. On page 54, on our revenue report, it gives a little bit more of a breakdown of some of the revenues. And as you see, our tipping fees so far for the year are running at 59%. Like I said, we should be at 58, so the tipping fees are at 59% of budget. So the tipping fees are running pretty strong right now, which is good. And as you can see, our solid waste is at 61%. So that's, like I said, that's looking pretty good. Our recyclable sales are at 55% of budget. So they are running a little bit below. Like I said, the prices still remain down over there, so that's why those are running a little bit below. And as you see, the store down at the bottom is running at 57% of budget. So they're also maintaining. They're staying right on track this year. So that's good. Over on page 57 is the tonnage report. We added a column on this report as well from the last board meeting. The last column should be increase or decrease. I apologize for that typo. But that's a difference, a year-to-date difference over last year's compared to this year. So you can kind of see the percentage increase or decrease on each of the different materials. The last thing I have with the financial reports is I just was taking a look on page 58 of the C&D recycling facility. They did a little over 1,000 tons this month, which was good. Like I said, last month they were right at 1,000. This month they did almost 1,100, excuse me. And so they were up this month, which was good. So are there any questions on any of the financial reports? Okay. The next thing I have is merchant fees, which are credit card fees. The county recently has taken a look at their other departments as code enforcement and some of their other different departments that also use a credit card to collect for certain fees, as far as what their merchant fees were costing them. And so in doing that analysis, they kind of also incorporated us with that as well. So it was kind of an eye-opener, because when we took a look at it, in a year's time, our merchant fees are running almost $19,000 a year, which to me seemed a little bit high, because I know kind of what our credit card transactions are, that we do in a day, which is really minimal in my mind. Where we're running up is we do have the city of North Myrtle Beach that pays their tipping fee every month with a purchasing card. So that's what's running our merchant fees up a little bit. So the county's looking at offsetting those costs back to the customers. It runs about, the county said about 2.85% that it would cost the customer every time they use their credit card. It would show on their credit card receipt. They'd have like a two charges, one for their tipping fee, one for the merchant fees. It also showed that way on their bank statement. It would be something we'd have to, of course, advertise and let them know that this was a change that we're making. The way it works now, we don't actually pay those fees. We have to maintain, of course, a certain balance in our account in order to offset those fees. What this would do by charging the customers back these fees would eliminate us having to maintain any type of balance. Therefore, we have maybe additional money that we could invest, that we could move over into our Wells Fargo investments. So it's, like I said, the county's just in the process of looking at this, and we kind of wanted to do the same thing as well, but I really needed the board's direction on if that's something you want me to continue with, to get in touch with the bank, see what it would involve as far as getting that set up. Like I said, the county hasn't made any decisions at this point. I think they're just also in the process of looking at it, and I thought maybe I need just a direction from the board if they wanted us to go in that direction as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
The county already charges for that. If you pay your taxes,
They do
or if you, for the treasurers or any of that.
Just
they
for the
already-
property taxes, they do.
Okay.
They don't, like I said, in code enforcement or anywhere else. From what I understand, and from what they said, is by law, you couldn't before, and just recently that has changed. You could on taxes, but only on taxes.
Right.
And she said just recently that's changed. And so that's why they're also kind of taking a look at it, because theirs are starting to run up too. Like I said, for business license and things like that, they're starting to incur more charges. And so that's why they started kind of looking at maybe charging the customer back as well. But they don't in any other department but for their property taxes.
Okay, I knew they did with the property taxes and that
They do.
auditor's office. And having been in business, basically, people are borrowing money, and you are losing that amount to do that. So if they're going to use a credit card, I think they ought to have to pay the fee.
Right.
Question, you said that if we maintain balances, then we don't pay fees. Is that on everything or just in terms of cards or what? I mean,
Just in terms.
how does that work?
Well, like I said, as long as we maintain a certain balance, that, I guess what the bank is offsetting those fees because we're maintaining this balance. We don't receive any kind of interest on our account. We did it one time years ago, but we don't anymore. So that's what they're doing. The bank is taking what interest we would be earning, I guess, and paying these merchant fees. So they would eliminate the need to have to do that. And therefore, we could take, if we had an additional amount of money that we wanted to take out of the account and invest, we could. We wouldn't have to worry about maintaining any type of certain balance to offset these costs.
Okay, so how are we paying almost 19,000 if we're maintaining balances?
But because, like I said, my way I'm understanding this from the county is that with this balance, there is an interest earning, and what they're doing is they're taking the interest that's earned off this balance to pay these fees.
You have to maintain so much money to make the interest to cover
Cover
this 18,000.
Exactly.
And what we're asking, if the board wants us to proceed on and get all the stuff worked out and put it into effect probably July 1, where people would pay
Right.
these charges if they use a card.
Exactly.
What is that balance, roughly?
I'm trying to remember what she said. Was it? Thank you, Mike.
How much is it?
4.7 million.
That we have to keep.
They require us to keep 4.7 million
In our account to pay the,
just to offset 2-something%.
yes, sir.
19,000.
Man, we need to be in the banking business. I
Really?
mean, that's
I
highway
agree.
robbery.
You gotta be
It's
kidding.
ridiculous. What bank is that?
It is.
This is Wells Fargo.
We need to look at another bank.
Well, they got all the county money and the school board money and
the county goes out on bid for that. And they just, like I said, that's been maybe 2 years ago, we changed to Wells Fargo. We were a Bank of America for
Then we
100
need to,
years.
then the county needs to do some negotiating with Wells Fargo, because, I mean, we're keeping that kind of money in their bank, and they're still charging us these kind of fees, and they're crazy.
Well, I tell you, one thing I've just looked into today was our software at our Scales House is WasteWorks software. And I contacted them about credit card services through them. Because that's been one of the complaints at the Scales House now is the two are not tied together, the credit card machine and our software. And they'd like something that does tie together to make it a faster transaction. You know, instead they have to stop and process the card, you know, through this little machine, and it's not tied to the software. And when I contacted them today, the gentleman told me that, you know, they do have a program, and they're very competitive with their rates with the banks. So it may be something that we can look at going through with them. Like I said, these are some of the things I'm trying to kind of look into, and maybe get a cheaper type of rate, like I said, through them as well. So that's one of the things we're going to kind of take a look at as well.
But you're saying if we pass these costs along, we could take the 4.7 million and invest it,
That's
and we get the
exactly
interest
right.
off of it.
That's
So,
exactly right, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we authorize staff to move forward with investigating that purpose.
I second that.
Probably moved in second that we authorize staff to move forward with the investigation of the credit card issues as we're paying fees. Come to question, prepared to vote. All in favor?
We're not talking about taking an action, we're talking about getting more information.
Yes.
Like, one question would be, 4.7 million against 19,000, is that what it was?
Yes, sir.
Worth of credit card charges?
Yes, sir.
That's
No,
the most
well, that's
ridiculous
the-
comparison.
That's the fees. Our credit card charges average a month somewhere around $60,000 a month, our credit card charges.
Okay,
But the fees
60,000.
are $19,000 a year.
It seemed to me it's totally, I get it about but we'd get 4.7 million of our own money back in our own hands. I get that part. But what I don't get is why they have it for that anyway. I mean, why not call the guy in and say, listen, we're just finding somebody else if you don't give us a bet. But you just said getting more information, not necessarily doing anything.
Yeah, we're not bidding bank services.
No, sir.
We're looking at saving $18,000, and every $18,000 gonna help us on the end.
Yes, sir.
And that's all we're talking about doing here. And I don't know if we've got more leverage than the county treasurer or not. I would think not. But we will bring you the information back. We will contact all of our users. If in fact we go to it, they'll have plenty of time to get ready to utilize these cards. So, we'll bring the information back, hopefully
We'll start charging our customers, and we'll make $18,000 in the year
Right.
based on current numbers.
But, so basically what we're talking about doing is passing the charge on to the customers rather than,
For
That's
the
right.
convenience.
Yeah.
And get use of, almost $5 million of our own money.
That's
Right.
exactly right, that we can invest somewhere else.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I agree.
previous question. All in favor, make a number by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
I have just a couple other little things. I'd given everybody a copy of the tentative budget calendar, and I thought while we had everybody here, maybe we could set up a couple of these dates. In March, we'd like to set up a pre-budget workshop. The week I was kind of looking at was the week of, I think, March 10th through the 14th. I'm saying that we probably need to schedule anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 hours for this meeting. So I didn't know if a morning is better, afternoon is better. We're open for whatever the board would like.
Thank you.
Any of that time's fine with me.
Anytime's fine.
Yeah, specific day or just say the week?
Anytime that week, you know, I know Mondays and Fridays usually are not good days. So I thought if we could stick with, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday afternoon looks good for me.
Thursday morning is not good for me. I have a regular Bible study.
Is Wednesday afternoon good for you, Reverend Coakley?
And as long as I'm out by 4:30.
Okay, we can get you out of here. All right, so if we say that Wednesday,
What date is
the
that?
12th,
12.
okay? And then our actual budget workshop
Are we gonna go ahead and schedule a time, or that?
that afternoon, we want to say 1:30? That way we can make sure Reverend Coakley's out, or we can say 1, whatever works. Let's do 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
That way we can make sure for sure Reverend Coakley's out
1
of here.
o'clock, March 12th.
Yes, sir. And I'll send out this calendar as well as just, highlight some of these dates. The budget workshop we normally do in April, sometime, the 1st of April. The county has their budget workshop April 10th and 11th. So, like I said, I'm open there as far as if you feel like you want to wait and do it after theirs, if you want to do it prior to theirs.
What do we need to do in terms of processing and stuff? Do we have to get information to them for their workshop, or do we get information from them for ours? Which is it?
I've talked to them. They just want some preliminary figures from me by mid-March, just to have just some draft figures. It won't be anything definite, that they'll, like I said, just some draft figures. So we can wait until after their workshop, or like I said, or before. It doesn't, like I said, I think in the past, we've usually met before, and I just feel like I'd feel more comfortable at least having a good set of preliminary figures for all of you to see before the county sees them. So I would prefer that we meet before, like I said, they're meeting, like I said, the 10th and the 11th.
Did you name a date yet?
Let's see. If we did like April 3rd, that Thursday, I know Thursdays aren't a good day necessarily for Reverend Coakley. What about that Wednesday, the 2nd even? That afternoon, that work?
Yep. Same time?
The question is, can we do it the week after that? I may be out of state
Okay.
right after March.
All right, what about April 8th?
That's great.
Afternoon or morning better?
Afternoon.
Okay. We do April 8th. And let's do 1 o'clock for that as well, because that'll be a little more involved. Sir?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 8th, yes, sir. The other date I have on here is in May. Normally, a lot of times, if I&R makes changes to our budget or requests any kind of changes, and we have to go back and make any kind of adjustments to the budget, we'll take it back to the Finance Committee. And so I didn't know if we wanted to set up a tentative date for a meeting. Like I said, this is only going to be if needed. So I just need the chairman of the Finance Committee to help me pick a date for that.
In May?
Yes, sir, and if we could do it, like maybe the 6th of May,
bad week for me.
okay. That whole, what about, we want to do it afterwards anyway. We need to do it more like, what about like the 13th of May?
Believe it or not, that's the only week I have free.
That's,
We do the
work.
Well, we'll
14th
do it.
instead of the 13th?
Okay, the 14th,
14th.
all right.
Okay.
That's a
May
Wednesday.
14th?
Wednesday, May 14th. And is 2 o'clock okay for that?
2 o'clock?
Okay, that shouldn't be anything lengthy, so. Okay, like I said, I'll get this out to everybody, so that way they've got all of these dates, and we'll make sure we set up reminders. One last little thing I have.
We may have, I'll have to I got a doctor's appointment that day. I'll have to see if I can get it changed.
If you
It
move,
usually takes me about 3 to 6 weeks to get an appointment with that doctor, so I'll see.
would it be better if we tried to do something in that morning?
Hold on, let me get back so I can see exactly what time it was. Was that in Charleston at 1 o'clock?
Oh,
Tears the day up.
Hmm? Come on.
You said that would not be a,
It's not a lengthy, it won't be lengthy, and it's not even a definite. Like I said, that's gonna be only if changes are made, if the INR
Let's go ahead
committee.
and,
Tuesday,
let's go ahead and,
Tuesday
no,
be better for you?
Tuesday would be better, but, you know, I thought
Tuesday?
Tuesday was bad one for you.
Yeah, if your appointment's on Wednesday?
Yeah,
Can you do Tuesday at 2?
yeah,
Okay.
Tuesday's free.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm
If
fine.
it's not a long meeting,
No, sir.
okay.
And 2 o'clock's okay?
So that'd be the 13th.
Yeah, is that good with you,
Third-
Lance?
That's fine.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Make that work.
All right. Only other thing I have is, Nanette Powell just recently attended a workers' comp conference for us, and for the second year in a row, we've received a gold award on our reporting time, meaning that the managers and directors are getting all the first report of injuries into her in a very prompt and timely manner, and she's getting them sent off to workers' comp as well. So it's just kind of a nice recognition, because out of the state, we're the only one that received this award, and we've gotten it 2 years in a row. So just a shout out to all the managers for their hard work getting everything in on time.
Good job.
Any other-
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bassett.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Talk a little bit about the C&D Recycling Incentive Program. Lee Disposal is the only one currently in it, and he brought in 3,471 tons in the month of January, and he recycled 380 tons. He got a credit of $5 per ton on 156 tons, and he received $783. Hold on a minute. And 90 cents for that month. Year-to-date, he's done about 4,000 tons. He's about 1,600 tons of concrete. He's recycled about 3,200 tons totally. He's at 73.55% recycling tonnage. Without concrete, he's at 57%. And he's received about $6,500 in credit so far this year. He'll have to bring the 73.55 up to 75% by the end of next month in order to stay in the program. So that number's got to go up to 75% through that calendar quarter, based on our regulations or our rules. All right, MSW incentive program. The MSW incentive program's done about 137,000 we've done year to date, and the factory's done about 38,000 back to the customers. The C&D haulers just went over there, and our C&D recycling incentive facilities, which is Tim Lee's at 6,500, for a total of $181,000 give back to customers during that period of time. Any questions on the incentive programs?
Tell me again what the incentive, the third one is?
The designated facilities,
Yeah.
that's Tim Lee.
Lee.
Tim Lee,
Oh.
C&D Recycling
I got it.
is what the customers receive at the factory. That they, if you carry something to the factory, that's how much that's totaled up year to date.
Yeah. Thank you.
Still haven't heard anything from the county
On,
on the incentive.
no. All right, gonna give you a legislative update. We still have about 4 bills at the Capitol. Just gonna give you a little update on them and where they're at. We have House Bill 3847, which is the e-waste bill. That's for electronics. That bill was voted on by the Senate on February the 20th to approve it, 35-3, and it's waiting for ratification. It should be ratified sometime by tomorrow afternoon, and then it'll go to the governor's desk. That's the electronics bill that should be able to save the county some money. I think they've done about $200 and some thousand this year in fees. So that bill should move forward. That's the bill that the flow control ordinance was attached to late last year. Then we, of course, the House Bill 3290, which is the flow control bill, It's still sitting in the Senate with no action. So it's still on the contested calendar. And we also have, we still have the Senate Bill 203, which the Senate side of the flow control bill, which is still in the Medical Affairs Committee. It never came out, that bill never came out of the Medical Affairs Committee. H3290 went to the Medical Affairs Committee. They passed it out and didn't touch the one that they had there, but it's still sitting there live, that Senate Bill 203. And that's the one with Senator Verdon introduced. The H3290 was the one that Senator Representative Bingham and others introduced. So that's, you know, we seem to keep forgetting about the Senate Bill 203, but it's still sitting in the committee. Got to remember, though, anything that doesn't get approved in June dies and has to be totally reintroduced and go all the way back through the process the next year. On the flow control bill, I was watching a video of a Tea Party panel of people talking down here. Larry Martin was on it, and Senator Verdon was on it. And he said the small business hadn't got enough to fight the flow control bill this year, but they'll have it ready to fight for 2015. I'll send y'all that link so you can look at the video of it. But it's Senator Verdon's comment.
What you say, the Tea Party's doing what?
No, it wasn't a Tea Party. Senator Verdon was at a Tea Party convention type panel and was speaking, him and Larry Martin, Senator Larry Martin, and Senator Verdon got to talking about flow control and effects and local government and other issues, and one of his statements in that was that the small business people didn't have enough money to put up to fight for against the flow control bill at the Capitol, but would have it by 2015. But he didn't see any action going to happen on it this year, but it would start, he thought it would start again in FY15.
Well, that's the anti. Burton is
He's the one that introduced the flow control bill. Yeah, anti-flow control, yeah.
so he's saying, from his perspective, they hadn't got no fighting money this year, but they plan to have some next year. Is that
That's what he said, so.
Must be an election year.
Must be. Also, we have a regulation bill 4432, which is the yard waste bill. It's at the Capitol. What the yard waste bill does is amend the current yard waste and composting regulations to add other materials such as food waste and other types of inert materials, or, you know, food waste and that type of stuff to add to it, leafy vegetables, stuff like that, and the regulations associated with them. There's only one that I'm aware of in the state that does that now currently, and that was the pilot program out of Charleston that currently does food waste composting along with their leafy yard waste. We did look at it, but they wanted us to treat the water runoff of the yard wasting facility as leachate. They didn't require that to Charleston, but we didn't see how cost effectively we could do it at this time. So we keeping an eye on these bills to see what happens to the yard waste and composting bill. And that's, and it also does land clearing debris and food residues, and compost and ground mulch. It covers all that. And set up penalties for that, penalties for people that's violating the regulation. And that's it on all the regulations side. I did want to make mention that we have published the RFP that we had discussed for consulting firms to look at alternative ways of disposal. We should have something, they're due back on March 17th. And of course, we'll look at them, evaluate them, and talk to the committees and boards about them.
Due back when?
It's due back March 17th.
You have a copy of the RFP?
It's online. I don't have a copy with me, but I can get you a copy, or it's online on the RFP on our website.
I looked on that. It wasn't there the day that I looked last week.
It was put on there today, probably 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay. And if you can burn me a copy, I'll just take it home with me.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we are, SWA National is sending out the RFP for us nationwide, so we should get some response back.
Very good.
And that's just looking, this is just a consulting firm that'll help us look at companies that do alternative ways other than disposal.
Very good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
When did you send that out?
Well, it actually went on the website today.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Knight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 74, we've got another company that is doing some good things apparently in Montgomery, Alabama. They're opening up a Dirty Murph there in the middle of April. That's pledged to take about 85% of the waste stream out and recycling. And I think some of the groups should go down after after it's opened up to take a look and see what Dirty Murphs have turned into since Mike Bessett was with Waste Management. I think they've probably improved. But we'll set that date up, and we're looking at the possibility of driving down. But the information's in your packet about the company, about what they're doing in Alabama, and also you will see in the packet also on page 78, 79 is information that the company would need. And this is pretty much true in any company that offers a new program. They take your budget and see what they can save out of your budget to make it look good. So just wanted you to take a look at that.
How did we happen to come across this group?
I believe they contacted you, didn't they, Mr. Gray? Didn't this
Yeah.
group contact you?
I was having a conversation with a gentleman in Myrtle Beach, and this lady Kathleen Yance is his daughter. And we all know about the Montgomery, Alabama plant. It's kind of a leading edge waste to energy deal. We've been keeping up with the trade press. So I asked him, I said, well, we're looking at that sort of thing. Matter of fact, as Danny Knight pointed out, this is the second company that we're looking at. I think you went down to the
Right.
Repower South thing. And we all are very interested, of course, in finding ways to dispose of waste other than burying it. And anyhow, so she sent some, she contacted me, and I asked her, I said, well, I think you ought to talk to Miss Creech. And she did. And Miss Creech said, I think you ought to talk to Mr. Knight.
And she did.
And she did. And that's how it led to this point. There was a chain of emails there, but that was basically how it was just inadvertent conversation on the street that dealt with what we,
I talked to her for a while, and she seemed to be very competent and know what she was doing, and it would be interesting to see it later on after it's been running for a while. I'd like to see how that operates.
And they're close to opening one in Alabama, the Dirty Murph.
they're doing the ribbon cutting on April 14th. But I agree with Danny. We don't have to go down that day, and it'll be full of politicians. Go down later and look at how dirty it really is, or how good it really is, or whatever. Same thing with that Repower South. You know, they,
And really, the company that we pick out of this RFP process will then take what these companies present to us, and they will be a third party, another set of eyes to take a look at it and tell you, that's not a good deal, fellas. If you can get it for this amount of money, most of them want all the garbage that they want. You keep the rest, take your tipping fees, and, you know, we've got to have somebody that, looking at this thing global and understands it, and are able to talk with these folks and negotiate, and help us negotiate out.
I also think that, and agree with that decision to put out RFP for people who are expert at looking. There are all kinds of, I like to quote Danny. He says they come in here with silver briefcases and they got a magic box, and you put garbage in one end and money comes out the other end, and they all got a big banker. And I'm leaving out 2 or 3 things that Danny says, but you need somebody that's can look at a global aspect. I'm speaking figuratively, and look at these 2 companies, but other companies as well. And a lot of it has to do with what, you know, some companies might not have as much involvement in recycling as we do. Recycling is expensive. In general, it costs you more than, right now anyway, than you get out of it. And we all know we have very aggressive tipping fees. And if you got a tipping fee that's $40 or $50 or $60, you can do a whole lot more than you can with one that's $29. So
Sure.
that I hope I'm paraphrasing where you and Mike are going. If we get somebody to look at it, well, we might not be ready for this kind of thing. We might not can afford it. I think Mike Besson and I had a conversation. He gave me a blinding glimpse of the obvious. He said, you know, when you start moving into new technological programs, that costs money. And it's hard to scratch money out of $29 a ton. And
Especially 40 million,
beg your pardon?
especially 40 million, what it costs to build some of those things. It'd take a
Yeah.
long time for them
Yeah.
to get their investment.
So Nanny has wisely chosen, well, let's get somebody expert in here and see, you know, how it would fit for us. And frankly, now this is me talking, not him. If we can conserve our landfill space and make it last longer by not dumping it over there, but the technology cost is X, then we've got something to take to county council and let them help make the decision. Do you want to invest in the future by competitive rates, tipping fee rates, so we can pay for this technology? Now, I know you didn't say that, I did. I'm not gonna blame that on you, but I'll help you if you want me to.
Okay.
Well, we need a third party to look at it. That removes us, anybody cast an eye about any of us involved in it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, another point, in Esther's group, on page 23, there was a letter in there talking about some of the center operations, and it was a good letter. It was a thank you letter, and those folks at the recycling centers do an excellent job. That's what I got. Chairman, we'll go to the committee report.
All right, committee reports, Finance Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Administration Committee did meet on February the 5th. First item on our agenda was to interview the auditing services proposers. We had, at the last meeting, talked about, we had sent to 11 RFPs to 11 companies, only had 2 responses. The committee had wanted to get both companies back in, W. Green and Company and Smith, Sapp, Bookout, Crumpler, and Callahan. And we did, and there were several questions from the committee and a lot of good discussion. The prices for the auditing services for both companies was fairly equal. pretty much the same. The concern with the W. Green and Company was that although Mr. Green had a vast amount of experience with another company in dealing with landfill auditing and other governmental services, he had recently struck out on his own and started his own business, and in less than a year, they had been in practice. And the committee felt like that that was a concern in allowing them to come in and provide those services for us. So after a lot of debate, the committee did vote to bring to the board the recommendation to extend to Smith, Sapp, Bookout, Crumpler, and Callahan the offer to extend their contract for 3 years to allow them to provide those auditing services, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Probably moved in second that we continue with the present auditing firm for the period of time for the new contract. Comes to a question, all in favor, make it known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes? Ayes have it, so ordered.
Item 2 on the agenda, just some investment information. Ms. Bidding actually came in, explained how the county had gone forward with the investment program with Wells Capital Management, how the money was invested, how it was protected, and so really no action taken, but just an update on how the money was being utilized more in the favor of the county and the authority in order to gain some additional interest while not putting any of that capital at risk.
Okay. Any questions in reference to that?
Third item on the agenda, we just had the tentative budget calendar, and we have since at this meeting set those dates, so we had just briefly talked about that. Fourth item on the agenda was the lobbying. We discussed the discussions that Mr. Knight and Mr. Besant had with Chairman Lazarus about the need for lobbying presence in Columbia, not just on the flow control issue, but other issues that may impact the authority and impact the county. And I think it was a very good discussion between council and the authority and the agreement that we did need to move forward. So I think there was a resolution put in place, and but at the end of the day, what our committee voted to do was to recommend back to the full board to extend to Beam & Associates a contract, allow them to have a contract February to June of this year, a cost of $31,000 to represent us. There was actually a rather lengthy list of items that Beam & Associates were going to cover for us, and I felt very good about the cooperative effort between County Council and the authority and the agreement in having representation to make sure that we had eyes and ears on the ground in Columbia. So, again, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Probably moved in second that
Now,
we.
I think that didn't,
You
not, was
wait,
not.
you gotta
part of
wait till I
the
get to the point of, you gotta wait till I get to the point of, if you've got a point of this order, you need to wait till I get to that point before discussion. There's a motion on the floor.
I second.
I've got to move forward with the motion and then open it up for discussion.
Will you just tell me when I can talk, and I'll shut up until then?
Okay, then, I'm just going by parliamentary procedures. You know, it's been properly moved in second that we move forward with the recommendation from Finance Administration regarding the lobbying. It comes to a question. Now, Dan, if you have an issue, you may talk.
Thank you. It was my understanding, both at your meeting and council, that we would engage Mr. Beam for the period through June, as well as a longer period that would go into the next fiscal year. Was that your understanding?
That's correct.
And that was, so far, that's not part of the motion. Do you intend to make a further motion?
I did not have that. I'm sorry. We did discuss that, but the minutes of the committee meeting actually showed the recommendation to the board just to do the February to June. But we
probably what we need to do is go ahead, because it'll run through October. The money is in this year's budget to cover these months, the 31. But the contract will run through October, so I think it would have to be for the whole length of the contract. But if we do that, we know we're gonna have to cover that in next year's budget, which I don't think there'll be a problem.
Right, so we're really engaging him over a multi-fiscal year period.
That's right.
At that
It
5,000.
compounds the problems a little bit because it's in two separate, budget years.
Yeah,
But the contract should run through October.
October 31st, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and this is in addition to an existing contract that we have that totals about $48,000 a year. That's right. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood, Mr. Campbell,
Thank you, sir.
that we're not talking about 31,000, we're talking about another 20,000 plus another 50,000.
The length of the contract, right, total of the contract.
Well, actually, there would be
31
three
plus 24.
different pots of money we need to pay him. Thank you for allowing me to put that in the record.
So do we need to wait, Mr.
Can we
Chairman,
get,
then?
we need to get some clarity on those amounts. 'Cause
Yeah, I guess my question was if we needed to wait until the budget to determine whether that money was going to be approved in the budget in order to,
Well, the problem we're running into is that if we're initiating a contract, then we have to go ahead and approve it in advance, because the contract is gonna be through October 31st. And, if you approve a contract, you've gotta make certain that the money's available for it.
And we're accepting the contract as it is.
We're
which
accepting the
runs through
contract,
October
so-
31st.
Right, so
Right.
so that's the question we've got, so we need some clarity on those funds,
Right.
to make certain that we have the correct amount of funds.
Yeah,
Or-
they have, Danny, what,
The money's in the budget for this year.
right.
Basically, what we do is find the money in this year's budget, approve the contract through October. What's not spent, we can roll it forward.
We can budget for it for next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Since we already know how much we'll need for next year, we can go ahead and put that in the budget for next year.
That's stated in his proposal, is it not?
And it will be approved in, next year's budget process.
That's correct.
Can you give us the total, what those exact totals are, please?
Yes, sir. This year is, 31,000.
And 24,000 for next year.
For a total of
55,000.
50,000.
Plus the 50,000 or 48,000 in another contract.
That is correct.
So we're allocating 55,000 in this contract, am I right?
Yeah, lobbying services is 55,000.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll amend my motion to include not only through this fiscal year in June, but also through the contract in October to include the $24,000, which will complete the contract, total of $55,000 under this contract with Beam and Associates.
I second it.
Okay, the motion is amended to show that we're obligating, or we're initiating the contract to go through October 31st, which will include a grand total of $55,000, 31,000 to go through June 30th, and then 24,000 to go from July 1 to October 30th. It comes to a question, are you prepared to vote? All in favor?
Let me say too, this has been here, it went to committee, it went to county council committee, then it's gone to full council, and that's back here. So I think it's been really looked at, and I told the council, there was a few questions about it, and I told council that there was certain members of this board that would really keep an eye that we stayed within this budget.
All in favor, make it known by saying aye.
Aye.
Poses nay. Ayes have it, and so ordered.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report from the Finance Administration Committee.
Okay, Recycling and Corporate Affairs Committee.
Mr. Chairman, Recycling and Corporate Affairs Committee met February 13th, 2014. The only item on the agenda was to review the public benefits program. Staff briefed the committee on the various public benefits programs with no particular action in mind, but just as an informative session to help the staff prepare for the fiscal year 2015 budget. So there was a good discussion. It lasted a couple hours, and there was a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and we ended the report with no action needed to be taken by the full board. I was asked by Mr. Knight to amend or add to the report, the minutes of the report. If I could read the addition on page 11. Oh, thank you, sorry.
Can I catch up with you where,
Page 11,
is that a different page than
should be, it'll be
page
the
101, page 11?
Yes, sir. Under where it's middle of the page, paragraph begins with Mr. Knight commented, he believed, et cetera. Next paragraph to be added would be Mr. Gray again commented that this has been a very informative meeting and included in-depth discussion about the programs. Mr. Knight indicated staff has no problem discussing any of the SWA programs in depth, just as has been done during this meeting. Mr. Gray stated he hoped the other committees will hold similar meetings. He believed this would assist the board to make better decisions. Mr. Besant commented that one drawback from this type of meeting is that someone would take one number from the presentation and use it out of context, not to explain the entire picture, and blow it out of proportion. So just add that be added to the minutes, and that's all that I have from your report, for your report.
Are there any objections to that being added?
I would like to, since that was brought up, that one of the principles of cost accounting is to match revenues with expenses. And I understand why we have the presentations that we do. For instance, under, it's called operations and haulings, we got all the costs, but we don't have all the revenues. The revenues are reported, at least in part, over in the MRF. Well, if you take them out of the MRF, then you depress the revenue that's in the MRF. And I wish I had a magic box answer. I'm just saying it makes it, and I think you alluded to this a couple of times, Ms. Creech, that it's hard to get the total picture if you got costs of, say, hauling and collection and all or some of the revenue somewhere else. And there were several instances, and so it's kind of hard to keep that in the big picture. And as I think Mr. Besson pointed out, we have an integrated system, which is true. And perhaps at another time, we can say, well, the way to look at this total picture is, and then kind of have a little side report and say, well, our actual gain or loss is this if you put it all together. Is that sort of what
I
you were
agree.
saying?
We did discuss that, and it is, I suppose at my age, when I added 2 and 2, it was 4. It didn't go into other things, and when you got 2 apples, you got 2 oranges. You didn't have lemons over here that you did that to, so you're right. To me, I do want to see the reality of what each thing does, where it is. I realize if you move it from here, then it has to be here. But I like to see the reality of what C&D earns, what airspace we save, what MSW earns, what airspace we save. I'd like to see the reality of that. I tend to handle that better. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But the MRF and the hauling, those all one, it is one unit, really. You can't do one without the other.
don't question that, we just don't report it that way.
Right. It was, as Mr. Besant said, when we were questioning how much, there are two places in that finance sheet that it looked like there was a large difference in monies. And then he was explaining to us that actually monies that was reported over here would have had something to do with this, how this was done. And those are kind of difficult. You can't record it at both, and I understand that the county and state and federal record things different publicly than I do privately. And so that's what we asked Mr. Besant was to come back later and tell us exactly the reality and where that comes from, and he says he's gonna do that, so it's not a problem, but it was some questions and a good discussion, and I need to know those things to make decisions.
Well, let me say this.
Mr. Knight?
This presentation on the incentive programs, wasn't really to show you that these operations were profitable or not profitable. Most of the time, recycling programs aren't profitable and takes additional
Yeah.
funds. And some of the programs had some income beside it. A lot of the programs had no income whatsoever because they ain't none. So it takes some of the other money to make those work. Now, when you get into the operations and the money, that's budget. That's the schedule we set tonight. That's the time we gonna look at the income and the expenses, and what pays for what. Very few departments downtown pays for themselves. We tried at one time to figure out how the county police could be self-sustaining, and then you got into quotas and ticket writing and stuff like that. And if you really look at the board's budget, you don't make money on the board, but you spend it. So that money has got to come from somewhere. And most of the time, it's all tipping fees. But we certainly want, through this budget process, to make it as clear to you as we possibly can, because we have programs that don't make money and it just costs money. And we talked about the factory, and we talked tonight about Bill, how much airspace we saved.
Yeah.
We give the mattresses away, but we save all that airspace. We don't make a dime on the mattresses that go to wherever they go. So I guess when we presented those incentive programs, we weren't clear enough to make sure that that it wasn't an accounting to make them stand alone, and some of them can't be standalone. Just household hazardous waste. We don't make a nickel on a battery that we collect, but it costs us a lot of money to ship them out of here.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, that money's got to be raised to pay for that, if in fact we keep the program. And through the discussions, I think everybody wants to keep that program, and we do too, if any way possible. So we will try our best through the budget process to be as open, and we want the board to feel as comfortable in this room, sitting around a big square table, and we're going to have the departments present, and we want as many questions as we possibly can, and if we don't get it done on a Wednesday afternoon, we'll come back the next Wednesday afternoon, because we We want everybody to understand everything there is to understand about, the operation, but, everything's not profitable. But overall,
Well.
the bottom line, we stay within the black, and we will continue to do that. And what cuts we have to make, we will to be that
Yeah.
way.
Actually, I thought it was a very good presentation you all made, and for instance, if you just look at that one sheet, as collections and haulings was a $750,000 loser, I'm rounding numbers. But then if you look at the narrative, you say, yeah, but we sold the OCC or whatever you call it for $600 and some thousand, and we sold the shredded paper for $70-some thousand, and all of a sudden you start getting into, well, actually collection and hauling in that, if you look at it that way, broke even or didn't lose much or made a little bit. On the other hand, if you take that out of the MRF, then the MRF lost money. So,
But
which,
the MERV didn't lose money. That's the point we're making. If you don't see it and it doesn't make sense, just be real simple. Did you lose money, Danny? And we'll say yes or no. And then if you want to see that we didn't lose money, we will show you the figures.
Yeah.
And show you how we came up with the figures. I mean, Bill's got a spreadsheet back there on shingles that, look like 2 inches thick, proving what it does, what it saves and everything, but, the airspace.
we're not disagreeing, I just think we should match costs with revenue, that's all. If the MRF made money on his cardboard, you got to put, well, how much did it cost us to haul that cardboard over here, which comes from collections and operations. But I don't want to drag it out, and I see some of us looking at a watch, see, well, Gray's talking again, so it was a good meeting. I thought a lot came out of it, and I hope we have more meetings like that. And I don't mean to be critical of what you did, I mean to be praiseworthy. I learned a lot. Thank you.
What we want to do, though, in the end, we want to be operating in the black, and we do it as a whole, and that's what we're shooting for. And rather than trying to break it down, as I see it, is what you're talking about, by department, if we have to take a little bit from the MRF to go with the hauling, they got to have the hauling to make the MRF.
I'm just matching revenue with expenses.
Yeah.
Cost
that's what-
301.
Bottom line, though, if you're still operating in the black,
And if you can't operate in the black there, you have to take it out of tipping. You have to understand that, well, it's coming out of tipping.
right, sure.
And clearly, we make money, because we put money in those,
In the contingent funds, we
Designated-
have contingent funds for,
over $1 million every year, and keep $3 million on hand. So I'm not saying we're losing money, I'm just saying that it's a learning process to learn, well, where are you making money, and are you matching costs against revenues, and do you have I know the folks here, Jan and Mike and Danny, have a full understanding, and I appreciate them helping me understand, and that was it was actually a 2.5-hour meeting, Mr. Long, and I thought it was a very good meeting.
Yeah. It
I
didn't
learned a
seem
lot.
that long. It was very interesting,
Yeah.
I'll have to say.
Thank you.
But I would rather look at it, if we got a program that's a good program, it's a beneficial program, I'd hate to put the title on it that it's a loser. It's losing money. I'd rather look at it as it's a service that's beneficial, and it costs us money to make it work.
Okay. Words have meaning. You have yours, and
And you have yours.
when it comes out of my pocket, man, it costs me, never mind, you win. You're the man.
That's all I have.
Any other comments in reference to that? Is there a need for executive session? If not, Chair entertain a motion to adjourn.
So So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded, we adjourn. This meeting is finished.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't have a round table.
I'm sorry.
I should have spoken.
I'll open it back up.
If I could speak briefly about round table.
Go ahead.
The C&D recycling program, it was created, I'm not sure what year it was created, in order to ease the burden off of a few haulers who hauled C&D from the flow control. Now that C&D has been removed out of flow control, it may no longer be necessary to have that incentive program. And I don't know offhand whether it is or not, but I would like for the staff, I would propose that staff look into what it would take to do away with the incentive program if it's no longer necessary.
What we'll do, Mr. Chairman, through the budget process, make a recommendation on that program.
Thank you. That's-
Okay. Anything else? My apologies for not calling roundtable. Anything else? If not, we've already had a motion, so I'll assume it's still in order. We adjourn.
Sounds good.
We got kitchen